Hi guys, and welcome to episode 10 of Convos on the Pedicab. I'm here with Niles Patel. Niles is the owner of 4th & Co. and the venue. So 4th & Co. it's a bar on 4th in Colorado, and the venue, it's a music venue on 6th and...
Thanks for having me, Alice, but it's at 6th and Red River.
6th and Red River. Niles, he's an entrepreneur. He owns multiple businesses here in Austin. I'm really happy that he took the time out of his schedule to come on the Pedicab and talk to me. So Niles, tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you get started with everything?
Well, thanks for having me again. I am a 30-year resident of Austin, Texas. Came here to go to UT 30 years ago. Plan was to leave after 3 or 4 years and move on to somewhere else, but that didn't happen. Like so many other people, I got trapped in what this wonderful city has to offer. And here I am. Started a couple of businesses way back in the day, and that's grown into from hotels to bars, restaurants, and an app development company at one point in time.
Well, what other businesses have you started?
A couple of hotels, Holiday Inn Express and a Comfort Suites here in town, and then multiple bars and music venues that I've invested in over the years. But 17 of them all total.
Wow. So your life has been pretty kind to you, Niles.
It has been. It's fun. It's been a fun adventure.
So what? When did you realize that like the entrepreneurial way of life was for you? Like when did the entrepreneurial bug bite you?
Probably early on. My parents were entrepreneurs, so just kind of led that life. Grew up in that life, and that was for me. Where
did you grow up?
Victoria, Texas.
Okay, so you grew up like near Corpus and stuff, right?
Yeah, about an hour and a half from Corpus.
Okay, cool. So. That being said, we're in a pandemic,
we are.
And a whole bunch of bars and restaurants have been closed. They've been shut down. Music venues aren't really operating right now. I mean, they're starting to a little bit now because they're becoming restaurants. How has this affected you, and how has this affected some of your friends who also own bars and venues? And also, like, how does this affected like a lot of the bartenders, barbacks, and people in the service industry who depend on this type of traffic to make a living here?
Yep. Well, the easy answer to that, it's been devastating to everybody in the music world, in the entertainment world, pretty much, whether it be bars, restaurants, live music venues, whatever you pick to choose there. I'd say we go back to when this pandemic started back in March. South by Southwest was right around the corner. South by Southwest is a huge moneymaker for almost every business downtown.
Everybody, yes.
And that was taken away. That's not only just bar owners, restaurant owners, venue owners, that's pedicabbers, that's bartenders, that's everybody that's related. Valets,
people like myself,
hotels, everyone in the downtown sector was affected by the cancellation of South by Southwest. It's huge. Some bars depend on South by Southwest to make it through the rest of the year. The money that they get, the windfall of money that they get from that makes the entire rest of the year worth doing. Unfortunately, that was all gone this year, and there's been very little help from the city and the state as far as bars and restaurants are concerned.
No,
very little or none.
I agree. It's like almost like they just literally forgot about all of us and just pretend like we don't exist or we don't matter at all. You know, it's almost like a giant slap in the face to the city of Austin, in my honest opinion.
It is, and if you look at it, what's the moniker of the city of Austin? It's the live music capital of the world.
Yeah,
well,
and
it used to be.
Well, now it's becoming the homeless capital of the Southwest. So you know, it's,
yeah, absolutely.
It's unfortunate what's happening. What's even more unfortunate is the mixed messaging that was sent by the city. You know, in the beginning, Adler didn't even want to cancel South by. Do you remember that?
Oh, I remember very clearly because on one day, I think it was March the 4th, he said that he was not going to cancel South by Southwest, that he was going to make sure that we would take extra precautions to make everyone safe, but that it would not be canceled. So with that, my accountant and I released a bunch of checks for deposits that we needed to produce some of the events that we had going on for South by Southwest. Then 2 days later, he canceled everything.
So how much money did y'all spend doing that? And did you get your money back?
Didn't get any of the money back, close to $110,000.
So you spent $110,000. So what did you spend $110K on?
Well, there's all types of stuff. The production that goes on to put on some of these large-scale events. Some of our events were, going to see 3,000 attendees on a given day. So
and you just lost 110K.
Pretty much.
And the city has no regard for the fact that you spent this money because you were getting misleading information.
Don't care.
They don't care. No.
Don't care.
No. And then Adler made a video telling people to go out and support a bunch of local businesses.
Correct.
With Sarah Eckhart and Kirk Watson.
Yes.
And then like a week later or something, everything just closed.
That's it. That's pretty much it.
Everything closed.
Yeah, first they canceled South by Southwest, which I understand the reasoning behind that.
No, I get it. And
we all get that,
honestly, he probably made a good decision. Like, I hate to say it, but he probably made a good decision. And it's probably one of the only good decisions that Adler made this past year was canceling this. And as a pedicabber, I'm comfortable saying that.
Right. But it was cancel that, and then, everyone stay, go downtown. All the locals should continue to go out and support. And we were able to put together quite a bit of a lineup, again, with local artists and local talent.
Which would make sense. And I think that if they just kept to that, we would never have had a big outbreak anyway, because locally
Correct.
we always had this relatively contained.
Correct. I think
up
you're
until
correct.
all the riots started happening.
Right.
That's when it started to get out of control because, tens of thousands of people were protesting and chanting and coughing on each other in a pandemic, and then it started to get out of control. But
right, but even then, it wasn't acknowledged that it was the rioting or the protesting.
No,
it was it was the bars that did it.
It was the bars, yeah. So it's okay, you have no regard. So here's the problem with Adler and the council with all this stuff. It's you have no regard for the well-being of these bars and live music venues that make up the core of the city, that literally are the reason people come here and pay these exorbitant taxes and exorbitant rates to come here. You literally have no regard for these venues that are literally feeding you. You're biting the hand that feeds you, so to speak. And then not only that, but you have the nerve to blame that source of income for the problems that we're having without any justifiable evidence.
Yeah, I don't know how they can actually justify it. I mean, is it true? Who knows? But they can't just pinpoint and say bars and restaurants cause this.
No, and
happen.
I'm sure it definitely helped a little bit and contributed.
Absolutely.
I mean, people are going out, they're drinking, they're touching each other, they're socializing. They're not it's not like people who go to bars regularly exhibit the healthiest life choices. So yeah, I'm sure that you're going to see an increased number of cases.
Absolutely.
From
but
to
going
just
to Walmart and going to HEB does the same thing, right? There's 1,000 people at a Walmart.
No,
that
that is true. But people in HEB were also the people who were going to Walmart and HEB might not be doing it by choice. They might be doing it because they just have to be they're doing it out of necessity, and they're super cautious, and they're all wearing their masks and they're doing all that stuff. And look, that's no way to live. But in terms of spreading a virus, it's comparing apples. It is kind of like comparing apples to oranges. But when you have tens of thousands of people protesting and getting tear gassed and coughing on each other in a really close proximity to one another, and then you don't even factor that into spreading this virus, you're being dishonest with how you're covering this narrative. And when you're dishonest about how you cover a narrative like a deadly pandemic, people are less likely to trust you, and then as a result, people are going to be less likely to actually exhibit the proper safety precautions. So you're actually you're really harming public health when you do stuff like that.
I agree.
And I'm not saying anything against protesting. I think there's a lot of racial issues that we need to address.
Absolutely.
And
it's our right to protest.
Yes.
And everyone should do it, and everyone should have done it in a safe manner. But at this point in time, we should have waited a bit. Waited for the pandemic to slow down a bit before we were doing all the protesting.
Yeah, or at the very least, just acknowledge that. If our city were to say, hey, man, our racial inequality is so bad that people are willing to risk their lives and the lives of others in droves in order to protest this, we need to come up with some actionable solutions immediately so that people can stay home and protect public health. If they just said that narrative, it would have gone over so much better than to just ignore the fact that protesting with 10,000 people together is not going to spread a deadly virus.
Right.
Does that mean, you know what I mean? Obviously we need to address there's a lot of systematic racial issues that we have to address. That's obvious, man. And I'm talking to an Indian. You're Indian or what nationality?
I'm Indian.
Yeah, I'm talking to an Indian American next to me in my pedicab. I'm sure you've dealt with a lot of racism and stereotypes.
I have. I was actually born in India, and I've been through the whole naturalization process. Had to immigrate here. Obviously, that was my parents' choice. I was far too young to make that decision, but I had to come here and earn my citizenship.
Yeah.
So, and I've dealt with plenty of racism in my time. I grew up in Victoria, Texas, small East Texas town. We're the first Indian family there, so I was a novelty, if you would, going into that town.
Yeah, and look, I'm a Jew, and you're almost a novelty in Texas also. Yeah. So it's, I understand all of that stuff. Like I get it. We have a lot. There are a lot of serious racial problems that we need to address. Mm-hmm. But there's got to be an actionable way in which we should be addressing that. And, when people are protesting in droves in the middle of a pandemic, our city officials should just acknowledge that and say, hey, we need to come up with some actionable solutions quickly for the necessity of public health. But nobody did that. And that's why people aren't trusting the narrative with COVID. It's because our city officials are not being transparent with us.
I would agree with that. They haven't led in the right direction. Similar to what you just said, if they would have taken action towards that and just spoke out and said, you know what, everyone relax. We've got issues. We've got to deal with them. We'll come up with solutions for them. I think just acknowledging that would have put a lot of people somewhat at a better comfort level and slowed down some of the protests.
Agreed. And it would have slowed down the spread of this virus too. And it would have allowed these venues to stay open and be open safely. And it would have allowed us to actually recover in a way that's going to be sustainable.
Right.
And right now, nobody knows if our recovery is going to be sustainable.
That's all a guessing game at this point.
It's all a guessing game. So anyway, Niles, what was the process? So you had to reclassify as a restaurant in order to reopen again.
Yes, I reclassified Fourth & Co. as a restaurant, which we have a full kitchen. And
your food is amazing, by the way. Like that burger is like my new favorite thing to eat right now. So.
Thank you.
So so come check out Niles' Burgers, Fourth & Co. Highly recommended.
Thank you. Appreciate that. But at the venue, we were recently just classified ourselves as a restaurant with a food truck option there. So, but these are all things that are temporary solutions. I mean, we're actually just kind of tweaking the way we do business in order to open up. I mean, it's still a bar. Yeah. It's still a live music venue.
I'm not going to lie, though. Like, knowing that you have food available at your disposal all night is not the worst thing in the world, too.
It's not. Yeah. It's absolutely not the worst thing in the world. It does keep people there a little longer. But ultimately, a lot of venue owners, bar owners, are going to somewhat manipulate the numbers in order to make this all work as a restaurant.
Of course. And that's to be expected.
Yeah.
So here's the other question. Like, what was the process of reclassifying as a restaurant like? Because we had a discussion about this at your bar like a month or so ago, and you told me that it was not that difficult to do considering these new rules, and I was wondering why other bars haven't done that already.
Yep. Well, it was a fairly easy process. I hired an attorney to do that for us.
Of course it was easy because you hired someone.
Well, anyone could have done it, but the attorneys have direct contacts with TABC, and so they kind of move the ball forward a little faster than doing it yourself. There's a fee. Of course, there's a fee with TABC. I think it's $750 or something, $700 something dollars. And then the fee to the attorney if you handle it through that method. But you have to have food. You have to sign an affidavit saying that you're going to sell a certain amount of your revenue is going to come from food. Only 60% of your revenue can come from alcohol sales. 40% combined 40% has to be either from a ticket, a sale of a T-shirt, food, soft drinks, or whatever it might be. Anything other than alcohol. And then you've got to try and maintain those numbers. And for some bar owners, maintaining those numbers is going to be manipulating the system.
Well, I mean, because if you order a vodka soda, like you bought soda.
You did.
Yeah, so, you bought soda.
Yeah, and there are plenty of bars trying to do that, saying, hey, there's $4 of soda in there and $3 of alcohol in there. So but in the end, that all really just kind of takes away from what the state is going to make. If you look at it from the perspective of what TABC's taxes are, or the state's taxes on alcohol are, that's 14.95%. The state's taxes on anything else, or regular sales tax, is 8.25%.
The state's losing money by this.
Yes. Every time someone kind of manipulates their numbers to show that, hey, you know what, you bought a burger and you got a really cheap beer, you paid 8.25% on the burger,
and you paid like $2 for the beer. Yeah.
I mean, the state's going to lose 6.7% tax on every transaction. That's
yes and no, but they might also get more taxable revenue because people might just order more things at these venues.
Maybe. I think that's a long shot to think that.
But they're also just they also just want to get some revenue. It's a
something is better than nothing.
It's a compromise. You know what I mean?
Right.
It also gives Abbott an excuse not to pay out the $6 billion that he's sitting on to actually help these venues.
Yep.
So there's that. There's also the fact that, like, how much money do you have to spend per weekend to get ready for a weekend in terms of drinks and all that stuff?
Well, we just reopened the venue just to kind of get everything back up and going. It was about a $17,000 expense.
And so what were you spending those $17K on, though?
Well, a lot of it's just replenishing what we had as far as inventory of beer and alcohol. Beer, obviously most alcohol stays good for an extended period of time, but beer doesn't.
Yes.
The last time we were open was in March.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to try and serve people
Yeah,
beer that's 7-8 months old.
No.
So all of that's just kind of replenishing what we have in our inventory.
Right, but like, I know that bars have to spend a certain amount of money to stock up on supplies every weekend. And then Abbott reclosed the bars for a second time on a Friday when they already spent a bunch of money stocking up for the weekend. It just seems really inconsiderate of the governor to do that.
Oh, absolutely. And some of our suppliers did the honorable thing because they could afford to, is purchase back some of the beer that we bought. So
well, that's good, yeah.
They were able to purchase it back because they knew they would be able to sell it back at a liquor store or at a convenience store or something along that line. So that's something they didn't have to do, but some of our vendors did that for us. But you're absolutely right. Abbott didn't think twice about shutting us down again and what that cost.
No, and then he talks about being pro-business and whatnot. I'm like, that's like literally the most anti-pro-business thing you could do, is not have any regard for the concerns of a small business that's already struggling in the middle of a pandemic. You know,
make them spend money to get ready to open and then shut them down so they have no revenue, so they can't pay these bills.
Yeah, it quite frankly makes me think that Greg Abbott doesn't want to be governor anymore.
Perhaps.
That's my honest opinion on that. You know,
he's probably shooting for president.
Yeah. No. Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck with that, Greg. It's not happening. But you know, I just wanted to know how much do you actually have to spend per week to order supplies for that?
It just depends on the size of your business. If the venue is open on a regular basis, restocking things is between $5,000 and $7,000 a month. If it's a week,
dude. Yeah,
if it's every weekend.
Okay, that's a lot of money.
It is, absolutely.
You know, and I think that if you're going to tell someone that they can't operate their business, if they can't open, if you're going to shut them down after they've made X number of expenses for that time period, and you're not giving them enough notice, dude, that's a human rights violation. You've got to give them just compensation. That's un-American not to do that.
Yep. And the state has not come out with anything. There are several different groups in town that are working towards getting financial assistance to live music venues, to bars, restaurants, all of that.
But it's a joke.
But the efforts are definitely there, but yeah, it's a big pushback, it seems like, from city council and everyone else.
It's not even a pushback. They're like, oh, we need to scrounge together a change to give the music venues, what, $5 million for everybody?
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, these are the venues that should be priority number one. They are the most affected by this decision for closing down. We are a service industry town. The reason that a lot of people in Austin are able to even afford to continue staying here with all the rising housing costs and the rising rent prices is because they're able to make a very comfortable living being in the service industry. You are like, the city says all these progressive platitudes, but then they're literally destroying the livelihoods of the workers that they're claiming to care so much about. And it's no more obvious than in terms of how little aid they're giving to these bars and music venues.
Yep. We were approved for a grant from the city back in early August.
Okay.
Still hasn't funded. So here we are,
in October.
Over 2 months.
Well, how much is the grant for?
$45,000.
Did you have to pay any of that back, or what's?
No, it's a grant. So as long as it's used for the right purposes, we don't have to pay that back. But that covers 1 month of expenses for me.
And why haven't they given that to you if they already approved it?
Don't know. It's just the process of getting through the city with.
It's interesting. I mean, I'll share that little clip on Instagram, and hopefully we can expedite that.
Yeah, it should come soon. I've been told it's in the process, and I should be getting it soon. So we'll see. But again, that covers 1 month of expenses, and we've been closed for 7 months.
I'm looking at what they've been spending their money on, and I saw this community impact thing, and I showed it to you right before we went on.
Yep.
And Greg Kassar said that he tried to champion $50 million to help struggling small businesses. have you received any of those $50 million that Greg Casar has been championing?
To this point, no.
Do you know, have any of your friends been receiving any of the $50 million that Greg Casar claims he's actually have been allocating to struggling small businesses in Austin?
I know of no one that's gotten any assistance yet.
All right. Thank you, Niles. I'm really glad we got a chance to clarify that on live television.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Good to know.
Yep.
All right. We're gonna pivot a little bit, okay?
Cool.
So,
That's the word of the year, isn't it?
dude, pivot. We're pivoting or moving goalposts. It's pretty ridiculous. But anyway, how come more venues haven't opened up since it's been a lot easier to just reclassify as restaurants?
Well, you still do have to be able to produce food there at the venue. Or at that particular location. So you have to have some sort of partnership with a kitchen.
A food truck.
Or a food truck. But not all locations have a food truck or the capability of having a food truck available.
But there's so many food trucks, even on Rainey Street, that you could literally get one of those food trucks to go outside Handlebar, and couldn't you just literally collaborate with a food truck right outside Handlebar? Because now, couldn't you just have a food truck like right outside that bar? And
now you can't. They've made the rules even more lax now.
Yeah.
So it's not even just having a food truck there. It's a matter of just being able to order food and having it in your bar.
Yes.
Or you could just make a cheese plate, or you can sell chips, or whatever it might be. So more and more bars are going to that process, but it's also a backlog with TABC because now everyone's filing to make that change to get a food and beverage license, and there are thousands of people trying to do that.
Right. So you're legally able to, but you're not opening until they approve
the paperwork.
Yeah, government.
So,
the
yep.
government.
Until they cash your $750 or $770 check.
And you don't know how long you're gonna even be able to wait to do that.
Correct. Yeah. They say it's about a 2-week process.
But it's not. If everyone's doing it,
Yeah.
it's not a 2-week process.
It's not.
And it's a 2-week process if you know a lawyer who's connected
Right.
with TABC. And
Right.
then how much did it cost for you to hire the lawyer and do all that?
It's another $750. So
Only
yeah.
seven. So you only paid $1,500 to do that?
$1,500 is what I paid for Fourth and Co. But that was back. We did that back in end of June, July.
But it was a little bit
timeframe.
harder to do that back then, right?
It was a little bit more difficult because you had to have a kitchen.
Yeah,
And you had
but
to
now
sign
you
affidavits,
don't.
and you had to do a lot of different things
Right.
for it. Now it's a lot simpler to do, but just because it is more simple, there are so many more people trying to do it. So there's a backlog.
Okay, but still, if
TABC
you-
didn't hire any additional people to handle this paperwork.
yeah,
That would be too logical.
yeah, it's mind-boggling. And then our county judge said that bars can't reopen, even
Right.
though like our hospitalizations are still it's gone up a little bit, but it's still under control enough to have bars open until 11 p.m. You know, like the
Right.
rule literally says bars have to close at 11 p.m. and they're not opening and they're not letting them open because of coronavirus. Like you're not gonna engage in reckless behavior before 11 p.m. to even get that virus.
Yeah.
Usually, you know.
It's a pretty smart virus if it knows that, at 11 p.m. it has
yeah,
to go to bed.
Yeah,
or
right.
It can come out.
I don't know, man. It's a frustrating thing, and luckily, enough places have been classified as restaurants. I'm able to kind of make a living and do okay right now, and you're doing good, and a lot of bars have been able to. I feel like probably 3/4 of the bars I've seen downtown are open now.
That's probably pretty close. Yeah.
But the music venues aren't, and these music venues are a staple of Austin, and nobody is we're doing so little to help these music venues.
Music venues are a staple of Austin.
Yeah.
Again, it's supposed to be the live music capital of the world.
Yeah, but instead we're the homeless capital of the Southwest because we're spending $60 million this year on homeless services.
Right.
But you can't afford to give a little bit of money to these venues and these bars to keep them open and help the people in our service industry when Austin is a service industry town, and this is one of the only industries where average everyday people like myself can make an equitable living without having to break our backs.
No.
Honestly, I'm disgusted by it. And this is, I don't like to get emotional when it comes to this stuff, but so a while back when they first did the homeless thing, right? People wanted me to sign the recall petition and do all that stuff to get Adler out, and I really wasn't interested in doing that because I didn't see it having an effect on my day-to-day life. Mm-hmm. And I don't think the homeless really have that much of an effect on my day-to-day life right now. But when you're going to tell me that I can't make a living and you're going to tell my friends that they can't make a living and then use the money in your reserves to just enable homelessness instead of helping the people that you put out of work, dude, I am signing that petition, and I'm using this platform to encourage everybody I know who's watching to sign the petition to get Adler and our sitting city council members out of office.
Yep.
So that's
I'm willing to sign.
I will get a petition for you later, but I will have one for you. That being said, if you're a sitting council member, you're still welcome to come on my podcast and have a real civil conversation and change my mind. This is the spirit of pedicabbing is about welcoming everybody. But as it stands right now, I don't want any of these people representing me at all.
I feel let down just as much. So
Yeah,
I agree.
I don't want these people representing me. All right, why aren't the movie theaters opening? That is something I never understood.
I don't know. I guess it's a matter of just being able to keep people separated.
But people are separated. Like, it's the movies. It's the movies. You sit in your seat and you're just not going to go mingle around and talk to people. You're watching a movie in your seat.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the answer to that is.
Look, dude, Violet Crown is like one of my favorite movie theaters.
It's a great place.
I love Violet Crown, dude, and it hasn't been open in like 8 months. And like Coal Town Theater isn't open either, and like the Improv place. And I'm just like, dude, play and connection is how you heal an emotional disconnect, which we need desperately now more than ever, Niles. And these venues too, they're allowed to open, but they're choosing not to. And there's got to be some kind of a self-accountability that goes into this also.
Right. Well, we also have to figure out what it takes to open up one of the venues, right? Like at the venue, if we have a large show going on, the production of what the cost of the DJ is, or whether it be a live band or whatever that might be, plus all of the other production that goes into it, it's expensive to open up. It's not just those supplies that we have to buy. I mean, there are times where the cost of the show is $10,000-$15,000 to put everything on.
Yeah, and then
if we're at limited capacity, it's incredibly difficult to make your money back.
Yeah, that's another reason why I think these music venues haven't opened up because of that. But then no one's giving them aid. And to be honest, I feel like they should be pushing back and saying, look, if we don't get real meaningful aid, we're just going to open. And we're going to open at full capacity until you give us aid. And there's got to be a pushback from these music venues, and there hasn't been. And that's kind of been disappointing that they've just been taking it.
Yeah, internally there's been a lot of work going on. The Red River Cultural District has been spearheading a big movement to try and get funding coming from the city, get money put aside.
It's got to be more than $5 million, though, dude. It's got to be like 30 or 40 or 50 million. Like, it's got to be in that range.
It's got to be a much bigger number. I think it's in the 20 million. I might be off on that, but I think that's what the ask is, somewhere in that range, to get to all of the live music venues. And I believe there's 52 live music venues, classified live music venues in Austin. Well, so that would actually do something.
Yes,
to be able to keep them alive.
Keep me posted on that, because any type of activism regarding that, I want to be at the forefront of it.
I will.
Yeah, please keep me posted on all of that. So what do you think the agenda is with all this stuff?
I don't know, man. There's a lot of different theories out there, but having the homeless people on 6th Street and all around downtown, has definitely affected business. Even prior to COVID, most of our businesses and bars and live music venues were dramatically affected by homelessness being downtown. Those property values are going down, and there are people out there, developers out there, and who knows who they exactly are, but there's a lot of developers buying a lot of property in downtown right now.
There are.
I know at least 9 or 10 different properties on 6th Street that have exchanged hands just within the past year.
Really?
And that's unprecedented to see that much activity as far as sale of businesses, real estate, I should say, on 6th Street.
In a 1-year period, yeah. Usually you'd be lucky if you see 1 or 2 in a year.
Exactly.
Has it been like the same company, or what's the...
Stream Realty, I believe, is the group that's bought most of the property downtown or on 6th Street.
And then you got to wonder how much they've been contributing to our city council's campaign chest.
Yeah, that I'm not sure, but I mean, all of a sudden one company comes in and buys that much property in 1 year, and I haven't seen that much transact in past 10 years.
It doesn't seem like, for a progressive city council that this is the right way to reduce, income inequality. But hey, that's just me, right, Niles?
Right. Yep.
And when one major real estate firm is buying up 9 properties in a 1-year period and exploiting struggling small businesses and just expediting gentrification, like, come on, man. It's kind of sad that people haven't really that not enough people have been waking up to what's actually happening with this.
Yeah, I think most people just it glides right past them. They don't care. It doesn't affect them, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't affect you until it does.
Right.
It doesn't affect you.
This is affecting a tremendous number of people that make their livelihood in the entertainment world in downtown Austin.
And also, when you destroy small businesses, you actually not only are you perpetuating more income inequality, but you also increase discrimination when you have less small businesses, because then it makes it a lot easier for you to be a victim of discrimination.
Right.
Let's say you only have like a small number of like places to choose from in terms of where you're going to work, right? And let's say there's like an abundance of racism amongst the owners of those venues, and you're a person of color. Well, you're a lot less likely to have a job because now you have less choices, where if you had more choices, you're more likely to find somebody who's accepting of you. And like, just for me, man, like, look, I'm a straight white guy, maybe a Jew, but that's, luckily I'm don't feel very like oppressed or persecuted right now. Mm-hmm. Right now in Texas, keyword. But I've struggled with like multiple learning disabilities as a kid. You know what I mean? And I'm not I've struggled with like multiple learning disabilities, and I have like ADHD, and it's difficult for me to like stay focused and do, and certain things are not as easy for me as it is for other people. And the reason a big reason why I'm able to be successful and do okay here is because there are such an abundance of choices for me to exercise, that I can find a boss or an employer or just individual people that'll still help me make a living in spite of what I have had to overcome. And when you take small businesses and you take that stuff away from people, you're like hurting. Not only are you hurting like minorities and people in the LGBTQ community and whatnot, but like you're hurting like people with disabilities, man. When you do that stuff, like the more small businesses you have, the easier it is for somebody who is not like quote unquote aligned with the status quo to be able to like find work and make a living and live comfortably. So it's like you're doing the exact opposite of what you claim you want to do, and that's what I've noticed with all this stuff.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree. I mean, let the businesses open back up, support them, and we'll all make it through this together.
Yeah, and we have to be smart about how we exercise public health.
Yeah, absolutely.
So speaking of public health, you have like families that are like doctors, right, or nurses or something like that, or?
I have a great deal of medical professionals in my family. Yeah.
Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Well, there's both sides, right? Some of them, think that the pandemic is greatly exaggerated. Some of them think that it's not, but I think for the most part, it has been, based on what my family has told me and the physicians in my family have told me, is that we could have gone through this a lot better, and that numbers are greatly exaggerated. As far as the number of deaths, many people have been coded as dying from COVID, but they really were suffering from some other ailment. COVID might have pushed them over the edge, but that wasn't the only reason for their death.
Yeah, and I know that 94% of people who died of this virus had serious pre-existing conditions. Exactly. And, look, we are in a health crisis. I mean, that's the truth. Like, we're like the obesest nation in the United States. Like, we do not have good lifestyle habits.
No, we don't. We don't. And we were talking about this earlier, that, the government hasn't, it's pushed all these other things that we can do, wear masks, stay multiple feet apart from each other, which we all should do as much as we can, obviously. But I haven't seen very much effort from the government to say, hey, you know what, exercise regularly, take your vitamins, eat better.
It was only now diet. That Anthony Fauci suggested taking vitamin D 8 months into the pandemic. Yeah. I'm like, oh, now you're telling us that? Like, we already knew. But then
we already knew that.
Posts about vitamin D were like being censored on Twitter, like in the beginning. Do you remember that? Like,
absolutely. But if we just had generally a better lifestyle, healthier lifestyle, then I think that would have been another great way of reducing this pandemic.
I agree. So, Niles, what's your being that you have a family of physicians, what's your take on mask wearing? Because that's another topic that's been extremely politicized on both sides of the aisle.
Well, I think if it's the proper mask, it works. But right now, I mean, it's not even considered a mask. It's just you have to have your face covered somehow.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily do it. Well, N95, if you're going to make it mandatory, I personally would say that, it should be an N95 mask. Yeah,
that's true. And look, I think that any cloth covering will, if you're asymptomatic, it probably will reduce the amount of particles that you transmit to somebody else if you're a carrier.
Anything is going to help reduce it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, agreed. But there's also, I think, a time and a place for when you wear a mask and
Sure.
when you don't wear a mask. And I just want to know what your take on when you should wear it and when you shouldn't wear it, and what the whole discussion, how the discussion you think should be framed.
Well, if you're in an enclosed building, I guess it's more important to wear it where you don't have fresh air involved as much. If you're close to people you don't know, obviously.
Yeah, we know each other. We're pretty tight, so
we're pretty tight. But you just got to practice general good. Use your best judgment, I guess, is the best way to put it. But as far as what I'm concerned is if I don't know someone, then I'm going to wear my mask around them. But if I know them, I feel comfortable. I know they're not showing any symptoms of anything, and I know I can trust them to tell me that, yeah, I'm sick and I wouldn't be around you, then I'm comfortable without wearing it.
No, I agree. And like I said this on numerous episodes, I wear my mask when I go to like the grocery store. I'll wear it when I go to the hardware store. I'll wear it when I when I order a drink from your bartenders. I'll put my mask on when I order a drink. You know what I mean? Or when I go into your bar, or if I'm in a gas station or something along those lines, or if I'm like at a polling location with a bunch of people who are there not by choice but maybe out of necessity, then yeah, put your mask on temporarily. But I think that prolonged mask wearing can definitely have some harmful health effects.
I would agree. Yeah. Again, I'm not a medical professional myself, but yeah, it does restrict breathing to a certain degree. I mean, you're breathing your own air. You're taking in more CO2 than we normally would. So there has to be some adverse effects to this if it's prolonged.
Yeah, prolonged. Yeah, and look, to wear it temporarily when you go like order food, or when you're at a polling location, or when you're at like a grocery store, that's fine. You're not gonna get any crazy health effects from doing that. But it, like, dude, like we on the way over here, we saw some lady driving a school bus with her mask on, and no one was on the bus. Like, there's no reason for her to be wearing that mask while she's driving the school bus.
Exactly.
I see like valets outside of hotels wearing their mask all the time, and I'm like, why don't you just have your mask right here and just put it on when you talk to somebody? And you know what I mean? Like that seems like it's just a smarter approach, because you're still slowing the spread, you're still being considerate of other people, but you're also breathing in fresh air and helping your own immune system. So there just has to be a better discussion about mask wearing and when to wear one and when not to wear one, and then it'll probably help reduce the spread of this virus anyway, and keep people healthier both physically and emotionally.
The emotional part is what we haven't been able to really judge yet, right? Like the physical part, we can qualify. There's X number of people that have been to the hospital. There's X number of people that have passed away from this. But the emotional constraint that this is going to put on people over the long term, how do we quantify that?
No, I don't know, but I can definitely see it happening. I was running for city council. I dropped out to endorse Casey Ramos, somebody who I'm like very, very confident in terms of his ability to like represent me. But I was there like handing out flyers and whatnot, and I had a mask while I was there. 100% I had a mask, and I had it like on my chin, right? And then when I went up to somebody's car, I put my mask on, you know what I mean? Or like when I saw Casey's mom, I put my mask on because that's out of respect.
Sure.
Right, when I like went to the bathroom and I saw people standing in line with my mask on when I was walking to the bathroom. But dude, I was seeing people like by themselves wearing their mask to drive their car, and I saw a lot more people than I should have just driving their car by themselves with a mask on.
I see it every day.
Yeah, or like you'll see like a couple in the car, and the man has a mask, or the woman has a mask, and the man does not, and I'm just like, how miserable do you have to be in your marriage if you feel like you need to wear a mask around your own wife by yourself, dude? Like that's like, I feel sorry for a lot of people who are that frightened, who've just been that frightened by what's being pushed onto them.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't understand it. I don't understand why you have to wear a mask when you're by yourself. Or some people think that, do.
Yeah, well, here's the problem is, and the problem is that when you're so susceptible to suggestion, and you're so easily influenced by what's being told to you, you're not, and you make decisions solely based on emotion, you're just not going to do your own independent research. Right. And that's the problem. And that's on both sides too, man. It's also like the fringe right-wing conspiracy nuts are also just as bad about that, if not worse, thinking that like COVID isn't even real. Right. You know what I mean? Like there's a big problem on that side of it too. So you got to just you got to just be an objective thinker, think logically, don't think on too much emotion, and try to have a clear, level-headed approach to this. And it's hard with everything that's being pushed at you on both sides, but just try to like digest the information as rationally and logically as possible, and do what you think is right for you and the people around you, and then try to communicate clearly and non-divisively. I think that's the best approach, you know?
I agree.
Anyway,
I agree.
Niles,
Well
I think
said.
that we're probably out of time. I know you got to be somewhere. Anyway, I really appreciate you coming. This really means a lot. I know you're
Yeah.
super busy. You run multiple businesses. You're extremely successful. The fact that you're willing to come on this Pedicab and talk about what you're going through, everything that you're dealing with, it really says a lot about you, and it means a ton. So anyway, that being said, we're about to wrap up this episode. So if you're downtown in Austin, come to Fourth & Co. It's a phenomenal, accepting, open place. The burgers are delicious. The drinks are phenomenal. The bartenders are like some of the coolest people ever.
Thank you
And then
very
if you
much.
want to hit up a show, the venue is about to open. When's it opening, Niles?
I think we'll be open this Saturday.
Boom. Go to
Yep.
the venue. Go to the venue. See, catch some amazing live music, Niles.
Yep.
You know,
Thank
my buddy's a phenomenal. He plays in this band called Aquifer. He's like amazing. He's like they're gonna be like the next Sublime dude. I'm gonna play some tracks for you on the way
let's do it.
back to the shop. So
Let's do it. Connect us. We'll see what we can work out.
bet. Let's make it happen. All right, Niles. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, Alex.
All right, we're
Appreciate your
shaking
time.
hands. We're not worried about this. We're good. We're building our immune systems. All right.